Good afternoon and welcome to another AFC webinar. We're so happy that all of you could join us today. I'm going to introduce our presenter, and I want to highlight the fact that this webinar is being sponsored today by the Career and Professional Employees Commission, as well as Region 1. Today's presenter is Dr. Angela Long. She is the Director of Strategic Engagement at Tallahassee Community College. She is also the co-editor of the Innovative Ideas for Community Colleges, a national book series published through Stylus Publishing. Dr. Long is an Innovation Ambassador for the National Association of Community College Entrepreneurship, NACE. She previously served under the Chancellor of the Florida College System as the Director of Learning, Innovation, and Success at the Florida Department of Education. She's participated in 3 White House Summit meetings on educational excellence for Hispanics and has shared her findings nationally. She holds a Doctorate of Education degree in Community College Leadership from Oregon State University, a Master's of Arts degree in School Counseling and Consultation from Northwest Christian University, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in Elementary Education from Northwest Christian University. The only other is that she is not only beautiful outside, but she's beautiful inside. I know you are going to enjoy this presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Long.
Wow, that is quite the introduction, Marcia. Thank you so much, and to your whole team. Honestly, it's an honor to know all of you. You're doing such great work for our state. And Marcia and I are dear friends, and so this is truly an honor for me to present today for all of you. So I'll just start off by showing my screen this morning, and just want to make quick comment. We would love to have your chats, your comments in the chat box, and also time to, engage through this Zoom meeting. And so if you feel comfortable and you want to share as we're going through, we would love to hear you and maybe share some of your stories as we get into this presentation. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity. Today I'm going to talk about risk-taking and leadership, and how one small step can lead you into the path of your dreams and finding greater purpose. And if you look on your screen, you see this mountain. It's almost like Mount Everest, and these climbers are climbing up this mountain. And when you think about life and everything that we walk through in life, especially, timely now, I think in the state of our world, and just in the midst of pandemic and just a lot of just upset from all sides going on right now in our nation and our world, it's so important, I think, that we realize our purpose and we realize our potential and who we are as individuals, that we have an opportunity to really affect change for good. And so what I want to share with you today are some powerful stories and some steps on positive risk-taking to just think about what you could be doing in your present position and even what's in your heart to come. And so with that, I'm going to start off this presentation to just share a little bit with you. And as Marcia so eloquently stated, I am the Director of Strategic Engagement currently at Tallahassee Community College, and also work with the National Association of Community College Entrepreneurship. And so with that, we really think about, the role of leadership and what does that look like. So right now, I know you're all at home or somewhere sitting in maybe your home office, and maybe some of you are actually in an office right now. But I would love for you to just take a moment and think about what are 1 or 2 goals that you would like to focus on. Maybe it's professional, maybe it's personal. What is something that's been in your heart? I think a lot of times, a lot of us think, well, you know what, it's probably too late for me. Or, there's barriers in my life. I just won't ever reach that goal. I want to encourage you. I know I'm one person, but I really want to encourage you today that those thoughts are not true, because honestly, it only takes one person to change a nation, for good or bad. It only takes one person to change a system. And I sincerely believe that any one of you could have an answer to a need that we have, not only for our communities today, but our system of education, and just thinking ahead, you know, where's the need out there? I know there's a lot of needs, but right now we're at a very pivotal point in our country, and not just in the workforce and education, but thinking ahead to the future of work and the future of learning. And all of you have been thrust into this virtual learning environment, you know, whether it was chosen or not, it is a reality. And so thinking about who you are in your profession, what is it you would like to accomplish? And if you don't want to think professionally, maybe it's a personal, you know, goal that you have. So if you could just write it down. The reason why, and I'll move forward, I want you to think about writing down your goals is for this reason. They've actually done studies, and people who are able to write down their goals and actually look at it and revisit it from time to time and map out kind of the path are more likely to succeed in that goal, as opposed to just getting up and thinking about it all the time. And so that's why I encourage you to write down 1 or 2 goals on paper. So we're going to come back to that in a moment. But before we do, I want to start off by just asking, when you think about risk, what is risk? There's positive risk, obviously negative, which I'm going to talk about. But if you think about risk, there is an actual dictionary definition. And according to Webster's dictionary, this is what it says. It says that risk is the potential of losing something of value. Values such as your physical health, your social status, emotional well-being, or your financial wealth. It can be gained or lost when taking risk resulting from a given action, or resulting from an activity, or even an inaction. It's something that's foreseen or unforeseen. Risk can also be defined as the intentional interaction with uncertainty. So for a lot of people, they look at risk and they say, wow, I shouldn't do it because you know why? I might fail. It's not worth the risk. I'm going to challenge you this morning or this afternoon to say, or is it? Is it worth the risk? I want to share a quick video with you of leaders in our nation and throughout history that took risk and how it really changed not only their lives, their families' lives, but the country. And so here's a short little video clip. And think of these people are what they did and what they went through. They did not let failure determine their outcome.
We don't like their sound and guitar music. Dismissed from drama school with a note that read, wasting her time, she's too shy to put her best foot forward. Turned down by the Decca Recording Company, who said, we don't like their sound and guitar music is on the way out. A failed soldier, farmer, and real estate agent. At 38 years old, he went to work for his father as a handyman. Cut from the high school basketball team, he went home, locked himself in his room, and cried. A teacher told him he was too stupid to learn anything, and he should go into a field where he might succeed by virtue of his pleasant personality. Fired from a newspaper because he lacked imagination and had no original ideas. His fiancée died, he failed in business twice, he had a nervous breakdown, and he was defeated in 8 elections. If you've never failed, you've never lived.
So with that, I really would love to hear from some of you today in terms of why you think we should take risks. And if you saw at the end of that video, it literally says life equals risk. I mean, every day that we get up, we don't know what the day's going to hold. And for me personally, I can think back on my life and I think about the times where maybe I was afraid to step forward. But I know this, the worst that can happen to any one of us if we knock on a door is that the answer is no. And when I think about Abraham Lincoln and you look at his life and how many times he actually failed and lost relationships and went through absolute heartache, he did not give up. And I think about Abraham Lincoln because imagine if he had said, you know what, it's not worth the risk. I'm not going to take this risk, even though he failed multiple elections. Had he not stepped forward in faith and went and climbed that mountain, where would our nation be today? Obviously, we're seeing, heartache in our country, but he laid a ground that I think we can all learn lessons from. And so with that, I really want to encourage you to think about, why should we take risks? So right now, I'm going to kind of open the floor. I'm going to ask Marcia and Sharon to assist. And if you're comfortable, great. If you're not, that's fine too. But I want you to just think about for a moment, would any of you be willing to share maybe something that you personally did to take a risk? And how did it turn out? Was it a positive experience? Was it negative? Or perhaps it's somebody in your life or of, or even somebody you've never met, but you're really, it's a powerful story. Would anyone like to share? Because I have a story I'm going to share in a minute, but I'd like to hear from the group first. And I love what Rory said. Thank you. If you never take a risk, you can never have the chance to succeed. And that is so true. We work with students every day, many of us, and this is a message that it's not just for them, it's really for us too, because we have to really move forward and consistently be innovative in what we have. So Melanie, you said that you're willing to share?
Yeah, mine is, I guess it's a big risk for me. Let's see, in 2013, I took a risk. I'm from Iowa, yes. And I worked corporate for a number of years. And in 2013, October 2013, actually, I took a risk and I uprooted and I moved myself here. I had been here before to visit some family. Thankfully, I have people here, but and it has turned out to be an amazing choice. I absolutely love it here. I found my home. I found my home in higher education. I've got wonderful friends. The family that was here then has since moved to Maine, but I'm still here and I have no plans to leave. But if I wouldn't have taken that risk and made that trip, I don't know what my life would be, but I am very grateful that I'm here and that I made that decision.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's really powerful. And that you step forward, and sometimes it feels like you're jumping off a cliff, but you have to have faith, right? That you're going to be caught.
Absolutely. It was frightening, but I made it.
You made it. So congratulations. Rose says that she would like to share. Rose, go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. I'm going to talk a little bit about my daughter, who is 29. Yes. Probably at 25, she came to me one day. She said, I want to move to New York. And I said to her, you are out of your mind. And she said, well, Ma, I figured you were going to say that. And she had a plan laid out. I've always taught her, if you come to me with something, have a plan. At least we can have a point of discussion. She had it laid out where she was going to stay with friends and, wow. Even down to her ticket, this is how much it'll cost. Anyway, long story short, she went to New York. 5 years later, she's working for Delta Airlines. And I am so just proud of her. Even though I instilled that in her somewhere along the way, family, not just me, because, it was a community that helped me to raise her. I find myself being stagnant, not willing to take that same risk that I demonstrated to her or maybe talked to her about when she was younger. And, long story short, she's home because, they're on furlough right now. And she's like, Ma, why haven't you, and fill in the blank, and I'm questioning myself for these last, 2 months or so. So, just a thought.
I would say thank you for sharing that and be willing to, share your heart like that. But we know that you raised your daughter. And so that risk-taking you see in her, she learned from you. Like, you were the mother that put those skills in her life. And so I think that that's really an encouragement that, sometimes younger folks are willing to take those risks. Sometimes they're not smart risks, but they're willing to take them. And I think we have to all be in a place to say, there's more to what we're able to offer. And we need to just step forward and take that leap, like I said, of faith. So thank you for sharing that. And kudos to your daughter. I wish her the best. I can hear that she's going to be very successful as she moves forward. I see we have a note here from April. And April, thank you for sharing this. You said that you're shy and socially awkward, but you took a risk by serving as the AFC chapter president for Northwest Florida. And that was, you said, a giant risk for you, but one of the best decisions of your life. And so thank you for sharing that. Rory, you mentioned that your story is very similar to Melanie. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, when I made my big move, I actually moved with my mother and two children who were much smaller at the time.
Yeah.
And it was very scary, but it ended up being the best decision for all of us. And it just drastically changed everybody's life. We all had, you know, a little bit of risk involved, but moving my whole family with me was quite risky, especially being a single mom and a caretaker at the time to my mom also. But I can't imagine how my life would be if we didn't do this.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And you know, it's interesting because I think a lot of people, we get very comfortable with our present circumstances, and it's there is a fear, I think, associated with stepping forward, applying for a new job, or stepping forward to make a big move. I remember my mom and dad when they made a huge decision to move. My mother, you know, she's a woman of faith, and one day I'll just be bold, she was in prayer, and she felt in her heart like this message: you can stay on and stagnate, or you can move on and mature. And I think sometimes we want to stagnate, and it's fearful. But the risk of growth, you know, you look at a seed, and when you plant a seed, it dies in the ground, but look what comes from that seed. And so I think these moments of failure and rejection, it is very scary, but it brings innovation, and it builds our character. So what a great group. I'm so impressed with all of you. So with that, let's move forward. I can imagine that with all of you, you know, these are important conversations. And I think even in this platform, through AFC and so forth, this is an important time for all of us to really share, because sometimes even in our own workplaces, we don't have, I think mentoring is so important. I'm going to talk about that, but sometimes we don't have that. And some of us are even, you know, cautious, and we should be cautious who we talk to about what. And so having this kind of forum, I think with all of us here, even though it's recorded in the whole bit, this is really a time for us to learn from each other and support one another. And so I know I see Marcia's nodding, because this is a powerful platform of support for each of us. And so I'm really pleased, and hopefully as we move forward and we have an in-person conference, I would love to be there and meet all of you in person. Rory,
Angela,
yes.
we had one other person who wanted to share, Rochelle.
Yeah, would love it. I must have missed that. Thank you, Rochelle.
Hey, everybody. Hold on one second.
You're fine. That's called real life.
Yeah, it's been back to back to back today, so they're a little on edge. But
okay.
Her story, you know, it's kind of reflects back to like high school and graduating high school. I decided I'm originally from New Jersey, and moved to Florida right fresh, like a month after high school. And I was scared to death. I didn't know anybody here. The only person I knew was my grandmother, and I decided to start my journey at IRCC at the time. And that step, by the time December rolled around to go home for winter break, I knew that I made the right decision, and it was the best decision of my life still to this day. I owe a lot of my success and my growth to the state college system, and I can't thank it enough. And I'm so honored to be able to give back to students that started my journey.
Wow. Rochelle, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. That's powerful. And I'm going to say, I am so proud to live in this state and to be a part of the Florida college system. And I'm sure all of you know we are ranked #1 in the nation. And there's a reason for that. It's because of people like you. It's because of the institutions we have. It's an amazing place. It's an amazing network. And so I hear your story. That's a powerful story.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best. Maybe you're going to step forward in a leadership position you haven't even yet realized. And so I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Excited for you.
AFC president for my chapter association. So I've come full circle at Indian River, and I plan to make big moves in the future.
Oh, I'm excited for you. I think that's fantastic. And you have an amazing president, by the way.
Oh, yes. The best.
So,
thank you.
The best. So thank you for sharing that, Rochelle. So moving forward, we hear from all of us, and I think, you know, it's so encouraging when I hear from other people their stories, and I think you can agree. When you think about risk, we really are thinking about that desire for the possibility of what could be, right? And so there's this hope in front of us. I was in a group, it was Sister to Sister organization on our campus, and I went to one of their meetings and we were talking about leadership, and we were just talking about hope and faith and, you know, love, the three famous: hope, faith, and love. And really, when you think about hope or faith, it's really faith. Hope is the wings beneath faith's, hope is the wind beneath faith's wings. And so it kind of carries itself. So when you think about the desire for what could be, I think that drives a lot of us. And we don't want to lose hope. When you lose hope, you lose your passion. So don't lose your passion, right? I want you to think of it in terms of this, in this way. When you look at it kind of like a seesaw, you see the input versus the desired outcome. So what are you going to put into this decision-making process of taking the risk? So we heard from several amazing women who shared that they took a big leap of faith and moved forward and took that risk. And the outcome has been very positive. It changed their lives and their families' lives. So what input are you willing to put in? And how does that carry itself out in comparison to your desired outcome? So if you look to the right, you see there's the probability of outcome 1. And then there's the probability of outcome 2. So outcome 1, it may not be as successful perhaps as you hoped, but the question is, what have you learned along the way that really built who you are, your leadership? You've got some extra tools in your toolbox that put you to that place. But then there's probability of outcome 2. It could be a huge promotion. It could be a huge position. It could lead to tremendous opportunities for you as a leader and your influence. And so risk, the outcome, I think we all need to think about. There could be the probability of outcome 1, but let's aim for the probability of outcome 2, because ultimately you don't know what your future holds. And so we have to take forth that leap. So what I'm going to talk about today is really the positive risk taking as opposed to a negative way of taking risk. And there is a way to do it in a positive, calculated, measured way. I want to share a quick story with you. This is my story, not me personally, but one that I know. Trudy Kaufman. So this is a true story. My dad, when he was a young man, he had just graduated fresh from the university, and he was 24 years old, and he was hired to, believe it or not, manage a women's clothing store as part of this mall. And the woman who owned it, her name was Trudy Kaufman. She was an elderly woman, and Trudy Kaufman was an elderly Jewish woman. And I say that because there's a part of the story so you understand why I bring that up. And one day, it was actually his first day on the job, he came in dressed in a suit, ready to go. And what happened is as he walked in to that first day on the job, he went to Mrs. Kaufman. He said, "Mrs. Kaufman, I'm ready to report to work." And she said, "Thank you, Mr. Long." She said, "First of all, congratulations on the position." And she said, "So I'm going to give you your first task." And she took my dad, young 24-year-old man, down to the basement. And they went down to the basement. She flicked on the lights and she pulled out a mop and a bucket. And she said, "I want you to mop the floor." And he was raised to respect, obviously leadership and elders. And he said, "Mrs. Kaufman, I will be glad to mop this floor, but may I ask you why? I understood you hired me to be a manager of a women's clothing store. Should I not start off by going through, the paper process, the budget process?" She said, "No." She said, "Son, let me tell you something. If you're going to learn leadership, you need to start from the bottom and work your way up. You need to understand what it takes to clean a basement floor before you get to the top of an office building." And then she proceeded to tell him her story. And Mrs. Kaufman had lived in Poland, she and her husband, and right before World War II broke out and Hitler took control, she and her husband were very wealthy Jewish people, and they had owned an entire mall in downtown Poland. And this woman and her husband, they had a whole department store filled with women's clothes and furs, which obviously it's not popular now, but imagine, jewelry. And one night, she and her husband got word that the trains were coming, the Nazis were coming. And they were told, "You better get out because they're going to take Jews and they're going to kill them." And do you know, Mrs. Kaufman looked at her husband and she said, "We have to go. We have to go. This is not keeping what we have to save our lives, like to stay here and lose our lives." And so that night, she and her husband took their little belongings, left millions of merchandise. took her little carpet bag and she filled it with just minimal stuff. They got on a train and left. Guess what happened? The next morning, that entire community that she and her husband lived in were taken, rounded up in the cattle cars. They went to Auschwitz and they died. And I shared that story because she told my father, she said, look, the difference between you, me, maybe others is, do we say to ourselves, is this risk worth the take? Like, what do I have to lose? A lot of people think that, as opposed to what do I have to gain? And so what I want to encourage all of you is rather than asking yourself, what do you have to lose? I want you to ask yourself, what do you have to gain? That's the difference of mindset. And Mrs. Kaufman had it. Her husband came to America with nothing. And you know what? They built themselves back up from scratch. And that's a lesson my dad never forgot. And it's a lesson he taught my brother and myself. And so I share that story because I think it really is powerful on so many levels, and especially the day we're living in, that we really have to think, what is it we can gain? And not just gain for us, but helping others. I think we're here for a purpose, and we're here to serve others. And so what is that role that you have in life to serve others and those on your campus? So with that, we're conscious of time. I'm going to share a quick video. This is of a young man. I'm not going to show you the whole video, and I don't encourage you to do this, by the way. It's not safe, but I want you to watch him because there's something in his mind that he has decided he's going to take risk. And so we're going to watch it and talk about it for a quick minute.
So in terms of free soloing, undoubtedly the greatest free soloist that ever lived is this kid, Alex Honnold. Pretty quiet, grew up in the suburbs of Sacramento, and pretty much, you think next generation, what are people going to do? Well, he's kind of skipped a generation and started soloing things that were unthinkable. I'm going to play a quick little video about Alex.
Free soloing has to be the ultimate in free climbing.
It's always a beautiful day to go out soloing.
To free solo is to go without a rope and to go without gear, to only have your rock shoes and your chalk bag and the power of the mind. It's also very profound. Reason it's probably the ultimate is there's one wrong move, you fall, you die.
Yeah, let me try that again.
And the person at the top of this game, and it's hard to even call this a game, is Alex Honnold. Alex Honnold is probably a perfect example. Is someone who's not only trained very hard, but is unbelievably gifted. He is like Michael Jordan.
I spent my whole year living in the van, traveling from one destination to another. I would say that Yosemite probably is the center of my climbing, that all my climbing goals, all like training, all kind of revolves around things that I want to do in Yosemite. This is by far my favorite place for soloing because the walls are so inspiring, like everything is so big, and that's like what gets me excited about soloing stuff. One of the most memorable moments was pitch like 22 of the nose. I put my rope away and I switched to just soloing. I just had a moment of like, this is like surreally cool. I was like, I can't believe I'm up here with no rope, just climbing. Like, this is rad.
Okay, I'm going to move forward. Let me go back here for a minute.
Now, Alex.
Without showing the whole video, you can see what he does. It's very dangerous, right? And I don't think any one of us would probably go to a state park with a massive mountain like Yosemite and just climb up without a rope, let alone climb up with a rope, right? So I want us to think about, though, what lessons can be learned from Alex. And so would anyone like to share for a quick minute? Maybe we'll take one or two folks. What lessons can be learned from Alex? So I see Paula made comment. She said, amazing. And it is amazing Would anyone like to share, maybe in the chat box? Trusting yourself. He's fearless. Yes, Lewis, do you mind go ahead and share, please? So Lewis said, overcome fear. He learned to overcome fear. Absolutely, absolutely. Anything else that you noticed about Alex in terms of the mindset that he has to do what he does? And by the way, he's still alive. They did a documentary on his life. Sharon said he doesn't let fear stop him from accomplishing what he wants to do. Rose says he learned to trust himself. Yeah, very good observations. So here's kind of what I'd like to challenge you on in terms of Alex. Notice that before he made that climb, he literally calculates every step, right? So he has mapped out that mountain. It's not like it's this first mountain that he's climbed. He's literally taken pictures of it. He's mapped it out, and he has mapped out every point where his hands will go, where his feet will go. He puts chalk on his hands so he has a grip. So think about Alex. A lot of people would say, wow, you know, that's really stupid. And again, I'm not encouraging it, but Alex takes calculated risk, measured risk. He's got the right tools. He has the right shoes on his feet. He knows how to prepare his hands to hold and to grip. He knows exactly what's set before him. He knows which points to look up and to keep that mindset. So the preparation, I'm seeing a lot of you saying there's preparation. He's always looking up. I love that, Peggy. He's always looking up. He's inspired. He's trusting that process. I think we can learn that from him. So my question to you is, what's your chalk dust? What is that chalk dust? What kind of shoes do you need right now to get you to the next step? What shoes do you need right now even to fulfill your current position, your current purpose? How are you going to calculate your move up the mountain, right? And so these are not easy answers, but they're answers I think we need to take time, prepare ourselves, and really contemplate. And maybe that's something you do one-on-one in your alone time. Maybe it's something you do in a small group or even in a larger group like this. And maybe, I'm looking at Marcia because maybe this is a conversation, this is part one, but maybe this group, we form something to go to the next step to encourage each other to take these calculated risks. I can already see through the comments, this is an amazing group of individuals. So very good feedback. Thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly, and I want you to, again, think in your mind about the 1 or 2 goals that you wrote down earlier. And in terms of those goals, how can you move forward to accomplish those goals in your life? Well, there's different types of risk taking, and this is according to research. And so I want you to think about the types of risks, the risk taking personality types, and where do you fit in this whole matter? So obviously there's positive risk taking. You know, that could be starting a new business, which is never easy. It could be applying for a desired position. A lot of us think, oh, I could never be a vice president, or I could never be. Yes, you can. Absolutely you can. There is nothing that says you are not smart enough, you are not good enough. You are smart enough, you are good enough. And actually, I find it's the people with that humility who think they can't do it are the better prepared leaders for that position than those that say, oh, I am a perfect fit for that position, because they know their weaknesses and they're stepping into it knowing that they're going to have to work doubly hard. That's actually a really good thing. The third thing is seeking out, you know, new relationships, which can always be scary, right? So positive, negative, and this is very obvious. You would never go into the Everglades swamp with a dead chicken carcass. You probably are going to lose your life or maybe a limb. And so that would not be a smart choice in terms of a risk-taking venture we want to take. Obviously, drugs and alcohol, there's risk with that. Even drugs that are legal, we have to calculate, if I take this, what's the impact on my body, right? And then of course, breaking the law, different examples of what that looks like. So that's negative, we understand that. So what does the research say? So there's 6 different types of risk takers. There's the weary type. These are people who are very ultra sensitive about vulnerability to risk. They're zealous about securing the future and they want control. So imagine you're kind of wary to step forward, you're ultra sensitive, but you want control. So this is a tough one because you want to have that sense of control, but you're afraid to step forward. So these types of folks tend to be very anxious. because they're always worrying about the future and how do I get there, because they want the control, but they don't want to lose the sense of having ownership over the process. And I'm sure we could probably go into this, but many of you, and me included, how many times have we stepped forward, you know, but we're scared because we don't want to lose control. And when you do lose control, ultimately, there's a greater outcome to come from that. So weary type. Then there's the intense type. These are folks who invest passionately in people and projects, and you might be one of them. Like you have foresight, you look at a project, you say, I've got an idea, I have an acronym to name that project, but your anticipation of failure can prove to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. How many people do you know who come up with great ideas and they are rearing to go, but as soon as they get those things on paper and they get the team together, something arises and it's like their balloon deflates. And they have this self-fulfilling prophecy that there's failure. Oh, what if I fail? I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna fail. And sometimes these things happen. So how do you get the resolve to keep the grit, to keep that passion going, to say, you know what, this is not even just about me, it's about a bigger purpose, and you move forward in that place of humility. So that's the intense type. Then there's the spontaneous, adventurous type. These are folks like moths to a flame, that they're attracted by the idea of spontaneity and risk, but then they live to regret their decisions that they made in haste. So they're like, let's go, it's full moon tonight, we're gonna float the river, the rapids, and by golly, by 3 a.m., we're gonna get out of that boat, you know, but at the end of it, their boat has toppled because they can't see, they hit their knee on a rock, they're bleeding, and now they live to regret the decision. It was made in haste. So we don't really wanna be that kind, right? The spontaneous, adventurous type. Sometimes it's fun, but sometimes you regret it. Then there's the prudent type. These folks are really detailed, very organized, very systematic, and very conscientious. Their primary concern is to bring order to everything and eliminate uncertainty. The danger with this is you can never eliminate uncertainty. And in an office space, I have seen leaders that are very prudent, but their prudency leads to micromanaging, and they don't allow people to take risks. They don't allow them to step forward because they don't want to have anything go wrong, but then everything goes wrong because then the people who work for them can't really trust them and don't feel that they have freedom. And I don't think any one of us want to be robots and the stampers in the office that constantly stamp the paper, and that's all we do. I think we're all created to be innovators, and we're all made to be folks who try to think about how to solve problems. It's interesting because they did studies in K through 12, and they looked at a group of kindergartners. They looked at many kindergartners, and they did a survey, and they measured how many of these children, age 5 and 6, were creative in terms of how they looked at things and how they looked at, you know, drawing and different problem solving. 98% of these children were very high on creativity scale. Guess what happens by the time they leave high school? The numbers almost reverse, unfortunately, because I think through our system of education, we really put people in boxes where they're afraid to speak up, they're afraid to step out. Yet when you look at the most successful people in life, they all failed. Thomas Edison is a great example. The video I showed earlier is a great example. Many of you are great examples. You had to fail before you could succeed, but we're not really teaching that anymore in education, and we need to bring that back. We don't want people to fail on purpose, but we have to let them know it's okay if you fail as long as you learn from it and get back up, right? It doesn't bring true growth, I will say. Then there's the composed type. These folks are strangers to anxiety. They're able to keep their nerve. They remain calm when others lose their heads. And actually, that's really good. Have you heard of the duck or the swan in the water? The legs are moving feverishly, but above it looks like they're gliding so swift. And I've seen some really powerful leaders that are very composed, but down below the water, their legs are kicking and you don't know all that's going on. And so this is a trait I think a lot of us need to work on, me included, is staying more composed when upset comes, because those are the leaders I think people look up to a lot in terms of taking risk. And then finally, the deliberate type. These folks are very analytical. Many of you are very analytical, investigative. They do a lot of research, businesslike and calm. So it's kind of a good combination of some of the others. Very calculated and sure-footed. And they always test the ground and they never go into anything unprepared. So Alex, he's adventurous and spontaneous, but he's also very deliberate. And so I think that's where you see a lot of his success. So with that, Think about who you are and maybe who you would like to be more of. I can. And with the deliberate type, what does this look like? So from there, I really like this quote, and I wanted to share this quote with all of you. And essentially it says, the only way to truly get the life you want is by taking positive risks and planning a strategy for doing so. Unlike negative risks, which are typically impulsive and emotionally driven, positive risks are calculated, and you must think them through and anticipate what could happen before you jump. And that is according to an author of this book, Creative Success. Her name is Gail McKeegan, and I really agree with her. We have to really think through and map out our plans. So thinking about moving up this mountain of life, which we are all on this mountain of life. And again, I want to repeat, we're in some very hard times in our country, in our state, in the world. This is a tough time. A lot of you, you're home and you've got your precious children, you have family, maybe you're alone and you live alone. These are hard times, and I think, we're told to social distance, but really we need each other now more than ever. And whether it's a Zoom meeting, whether we get encouragement from calling up a friend, I think we have to really, through this time, it's like we're all in this raft, this lifeboat, and we're moving upstream as opposed to going down the current. And so as you move up the mountain, move through the current up the stream, we have to paddle together, right? And it's like there's more force in the paddle movements when you have more people who are oaring in that same direction. I will share very quickly, I come from Pacific Northwest, from Oregon, and up near the Portland area, there's Multnomah Falls. And I have to say, I went there with my family one summer. It was the most powerful thing I've ever seen in this sense. The salmon, they spawn in this pool at the base of the falls. But if you look at the actual falls as it's coming down the mountain, there's huge rocks. And in some places, the water is only like 4 inches deep. And can you imagine a huge salmon trying to breathe with his gills going up? And what happens is the salmon spawn there, and they have to literally come up the stream up to that waterfall, the base of the waterfall. And I physically, with my eyes, watched these huge salmon leaping in the air to get up to the base of the falls in literally inches of water. And I have to tell you, it was really a powerful moment for me, because I thought, it's so easy to go down through the stream, down through life. But how much more difficult to go and jump over rocks and places where it's like you're thinking, I'm not going to make it. But when you get to the base of the pool, it's paradise. So how do we do that? This is a whole nother conversation, but I think there's lessons to be learned in that. So when you think about moving up and taking positive risk, there's 12 steps that I think are really helpful I want to share with you before we close out today. So the first is this, and again, this presentation will be shared, so you don't need to take notes unless you're a note taker. But the first really critical step is this. You need to stop and develop a roadmap of your future. Write down your top goals. Where do you want to be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, even 20? And I want you to think about the obstacles that could prevent you from achieving those goals. What is it that you need to do to make it reality? And more than that, who is it that you need on your team to help you get there? And so I believe we all, like I said, you have potential, you have leadership, you have insight, wisdom, knowledge, you have a purpose and you have a voice. What is it you need to do to get there? And specifically write down in detail the steps that you need to take. So that's step number 1, is develop that roadmap, right? Step number 2 is I want you to think big. Tune into what you really want on multiple levels, whether it's mind, body, and spirit. Sometimes we think too small, and when we do, we get stuck in that fear mode. But don't let that happen. I want you to think big, because again, it's amazing the potential we all have if we just take that step to say, okay, this is the plan. What's my chalk dust? What do I need to help me calculate those steps up the mountain? The third is get involved. Now look, I'm going to applaud all of you because you're here today, right? You're participating. Maybe you do this every time there's a session, you're participating, getting involved. Many of you said that you're chapter president for AFC. I congratulate you, because your role as leaders is what really helps open up new doors. And so we know that when you get involved, it really, number one, challenges you in new ways. It helps you realize that your need to risk, that sometimes we're novices, but that learning, when we have that learning and that growth, it builds new opportunities. And that through trepidation is diminished when you choose the right people to associate with. And so going to meetings, exploring, meeting new people, having these types of involvement really opens up new doors, and it builds your professional network. The fourth is be on the cutting edge. I won't take time to really get into this because I could. I've been talking with people all over the country about the future of work, and we're at an amazing pivotal point. And there's a saying that change comes by crisis. Guess what? We're in a crisis. We know this. So obviously that's impacted change. That's come from this virtual learning at a whole nother level. So think about it. What could you problem solve in education today that's not been met? So being on the cutting edge is really simply this. You're finding the problem and you're finding the pieces to the puzzle that solve that problem. And one person can come up with a solution, or a team can come up with a solution, but you never know what could come from that. So propose new projects and ideas to the folks at work. And you will never know what could come from that. You could be the author of a program or of a tool that could affect the entire system of education in our country. And I truly believe that. So it only takes one person, and it could be you. Number 5 is find a mentor. Again, if you can't find a mentor maybe at your place of employment, who in the state, who nationally do you look up to that you want to connect with? Find that person, email them, say, hey, I would love to talk to you at least maybe once a month. We could do a Zoom call, have a cup of coffee, and really find somebody that you admire or that you know that you could learn from. Those are the types of people that challenge you, but they're there to help you grow. And so when you find that mentor, it's really an amazing, powerful gift. Number 6 is explore your options. Again, we talk about taking risk, but what is in your heart? Like here in quotes, it says, what's calling you? Is there something that's calling you? I feel a deep sense in my heart about things I want to accomplish that's deep in terms of where I feel my calling is. Do you want to do something you've never done? Like a techie who really wants to be an interior designer. Sometimes it's tough to change careers, but experiment with your options. Maybe take a class or go to a related event. You never know who you're going to meet there, and you never know what you could learn. And then 7 is be ready for new opportunities. By taking a risk, you learn, number 1, is it the life you really want? And if it's not, great, that's okay. Then you take a different turn. But if it is the life that you want, then the steps that you need to take, it will show up. An example is a woman who had been trying to publish her first book, unexpectedly met somebody through LinkedIn that was the owner of a publishing company. They connected, and you know what happened? She got her book published. So you never know what opportunities are going to come forward. Number 8 is practice taking small risks one step at a time. And if you train yourself to take these risks, then you'll continue week by week. But here's the key. Reward yourself. They have shown this even with students. Every time we take risks or we succeed, reward yourself in little ways. And when you meet your goals little by little, you want to reward and have a time to celebrate, because really that celebration trains us to keep moving forward. And so I think that's really important how you do that. And then of course, this is a big one, model effective leadership. We can complain about people we know or people in leadership, you know, what they do right, what they do wrong. But I'm going to challenge all of us on this, rather than looking at saying, well, this person didn't do this, and, you know, be the effective leader. Be the leader you want to see in others. Be the person that you know you should be modeling that effective leadership. And if your boss can't see it, that's not your problem. You are the leader. You never know the door that will open because you showed yourself to be the leader that people desire to see. So model effective leadership and look at new books, talk with each other like we're doing. This is really a powerful platform for all of us to engage and learn from each other. Number 10 is to go above and beyond what is expected. And I have a sense all of you are like this, or, you know, you probably wouldn't be calling in to, you know, have these kinds of conversations. But when you take risks and you have a new idea and you propose these new ideas and you go above and beyond what is expected, there is a reward. And I'm going to say sometimes it feels like we're not being acknowledged, we're not being appreciated. Sometimes it doesn't feel like we're being rewarded for the good, but do not be weary in doing good because there is a reward. You may not see it right away. It may not come to you immediately, but over time, there is a reward and it's inevitable. We don't see it sometimes in the time frame we want, but there is a reward for doing the right thing. So I will say that. Number 11 is build your support network. And this is one of the things you're doing now. But building those, and increasing the types of people around you that are successful risk takers, they only build each other up, and you form a camaraderie that is really, I think, powerful in terms of pulling together to affect change for good. And then the final one is really big. Do not fear failure. Failure is a part of life, and we go through the ups and downs, and we know this, but keep in mind that failure, it really is part of this process. And so when you learn to frame the risks that you're taking, that it's going to happen along the way, that there's going to be failure along the way, don't beat yourself up when it happens. Just say, you know what, this is part of my learning process, and it's okay. It's actually a good thing. It's building within us, I think, the strength we need to be truly, truly successful. So with that, Marcia, I want to make sure I don't miss anything on the chat board. So looking back at your chats, because I'm going to close out here in just a moment. Bethany mentions my mentors are mostly from up north, where I moved from a couple years ago. I have a couple people here that I really look up to. And I think that's great. Sometimes our mentors aren't going to be local, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I think trust has to be a part of that process. April says, I love the board of directors. I need to set up one for myself. I like that. Rochelle says, make your friends before you meet them, before you need them. Yes, I agree. I think that's very good. And then my mentors from Melanie will be pleased they were promoted to a board of directors. Okay. That's fantastic. So very good. So I'm going to actually, Marcia, I'm going to get ready to close out here with, I think, a very powerful end video. And I'm going to close with a few questions. And this is just the final thought, right? And I hope you enjoyed this talk. I think it's important that we encourage each other and really speak into each other's lives about our potential and our worth. But I want you to think about what positive risks must you take in order to realize your dreams in life. That's number one. Number two is, what 3 steps of the 12, if you were going to map out the 12 that I just shared, can you start doing right now? And maybe you're doing them right now. So if you're already doing some of the 3, then what additional can you add to that? And I think that's really, really a good start. So with that, I'm going to close with a video. And this video is really powerful. It's actually, maybe some of you might have seen it. It's a foreign commercial. But what it says to me, and it's not in English, but there's English subtitles. Sometimes we get tired. We do good work, but we're not acknowledged. Some of us won't get that pay raise that we have been so longing to get. Some of us won't get the award or the recognition on our campus with the trophy. But it doesn't mean that we stop doing the good, because there is a reward, like I was saying. This commercial, I want you to really pay close attention to it. I think it's a tearjerker, but it's a story of a young man who does good every day, and he eventually sees the reward of his good. So go ahead and we'll watch together, and hopefully it will encourage you.
เขาจะได้อะไรถ้าเขาทำแบบนี้ทุกวัน ไม่ได้อะไรเลยไม่ได้รวยขึ้นไม่ได้ออกทีวีไม่มีใครรู้จักไม่ได้มีชื่อเสียงที่มากขึ้นเพราะสิ่งที่เขาได้คือได้แค่ความรู้สึกได้เห็นความสุขได้เข้าใจได้ความรักได้ในสิ่งที่เงินซื้อไม่ได้ได้โลกที่สวยงามกว่าเดิมในชีวิตคุณอะไรคือสิ่งที่คุณต้องการมากที่สุด
ไทยประกันชีวิต
I just want to say you are all beautiful and I wish you the absolute best. Don't get discouraged when, every day you do really good things and you take moments to do good things. There is a reward and sometimes it's not monetary. Sometimes we're never going to be famous, but what we're doing is we're changing lives and you don't know what your smile could bring. You don't know the impact of your words. See, I feel emotional. Yeah.
Don't make me cry. Don't you start. Don't you make me cry.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And that was really great. So look.
Thank you.
Questions. Yes.
So I'm looking in the chat box here, Angela. First of all, let me say this. I think everything you presented is something that we know, but we don't necessarily do.
That's
and
right.
It is always good to be reminded to step out of our boxes and to push ourselves, because I think we all at times get a little comfortable where we are. Or are fearful about tomorrow. As a self-proclaimed control freak, I know that is often my problem. I don't like uncertainty, and I want to control everything around me. Sometimes that can keep me stagnant and certainly can keep me from stepping out and trying something new because it requires me to let go.
There you go.
When that faith thing kicks in, and I also believe that belief in ourselves. And so there are a lot of lessons and I think takeaways from today's presentation. So thank you for that. Thank you for the reminder to trust ourselves, like the guy on climbing the mountain, to trust ourselves, to have faith, and to prepare. And if we can do all of those things, then we can take the necessary risk to live the lives that we want to live and to be the better people that I think we all want to be.
Yes, absolutely. Look, we all do know this, but it speaks to me too. Every time I see that video, it's a good reminder. I just think it's important to remind each other.
Yes. Well, I'm looking in the chat. I don't see any questions for you. So I'm going to open it up to Sharon and let Sharon have a few words here before we go.
Thank you, Marcia and Eileen for the help today. And I just want to say a great big thank you to Miss Angela. I knew about her on campus, but we had never met until we saw face to face today. And I heard great things about her, and it was just a powerful presentation she did today. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Sharon Walker. I'm a staff assistant in the office of the Vice President for Student Affairs at Tallahassee Community College. And I am the 2020 chair of CPEC, the Career and Professional Employees Commission. And who is CPEC? Pretty much everybody on this webinar is CPEC, except for if you're administration or faculty. And we promote professional growth and exchange ideas among all of our employees. And we just believe in being out there. CPEC believes in being out there and teaching everyone and helping everyone to grow professionally. And I just want to say thank you for all of you who all took the time to come out and be with us, and to let you know that CPEC is still on the move. We do have awards for our recognition for our exemplary practice and our Employee of the Year and the Education Scholarship. And tomorrow we will also be doing a presentation at Region 5's conference. And we have another presentation on the 16th, which is our two-parters. One's going to be at 11 a.m. and the second one's going to be at 2 p.m., which will be a presentation by Juanita Scott from Pensacola State. So I ask all of you to join us on those dates. And I really want to say thank you again for being a part of our webinar today.
Thank you, Sharon. And I don't know about you all, but I think we need to bring Angela back for part 2 of this. So we're going to talk about how we can turn this into a part 2, and hopefully all of you will join us again as we kind of walk through how to step out there and take risks. And not be afraid to be our best selves. So look for more information to come.
Oh, and Marcia, can I say this?
Yes, ma'am.
For those of you who know you somebody that could use this help from what she gave us today, please tell them to come on there and catch the recording of it. And then maybe they can catch it before they can come and invite them to see part 2. Because this is really, really good stuff.
It is. It is. Well, again, thank you, Angela, for sharing your expertise. And really, it's just for sharing you. For those of you who don't know her, this is what you get whenever you're around her. She is such an inspiration to everyone who has the pleasure of meeting her. So, Angela Long, thank you for being you.
Thank you, and thank you for your leadership. I hope we can all meet again, the whole group. This has been great. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank y'all for coming.
Yes, we'll see you on our next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for hosting this. It was awesome.
Thank you, guys.